a few points on for preppers and just in general how the law works in the UK. And it's the same in most, should I say, Israeli-owned countries, NATO-owned countries, however you want to phrase it. The basic law works in that you're not allowed to have a weapon unless you are paid by the government. That's generally how it works. So if you have something on you, it's not so much what you have, it's your intent. You can go and buy a bong, but it's against the law to use it for drugs. You can go and buy a knife, but you're not allowed to use it as a knife unless you have a certain intent that is not for self-defense. If you have a screwdriver in your pocket, you have to prove some valid reason to have it that is not defensive or offensive. So if you're walking around with a screwdriver in your pocket and you're not someone who's doing DIY or a mechanic or someone who has a reason to have a screwdriver, you can be arrested for having an offensive weapon. It's intent. That is what they use against people. You have an elastic band, you can be arrested. This is not a joke, it's been done with intent to use that as a weapon to make a catapult to kill an animal. Just by having an elastic band. It's not what you do, it's what they say is your perceived intent. Now you can say that the law says you can carry a small unfixed blade and that's not against the law. And that's true, it's not. But they can say you have an intent to use it for something offensive. It's not what you do, it's what they say you're thinking about doing. It's psychology. Most law is based on psychology. That's for the past 100 years. It's not what you do, it's what they say they think you're going to do. So that is what you have to bear in mind. It's the perception, it's the intent, or the perceived intent. You can go out with a shotgun if you're being paid by the government in some capacity, even as a road sweeper. If you can say your intent is not to defend yourself, they don't care about you killing someone, they care about you defending yourself. They don't want you to defend yourself, which tells you a lot about the way the government works. Yes, you can say the law states that you can carry a knife where the blade, that's the cutting edge, is less than 3 inches and the blade does not lock in position. So your optimal one where you can twist a thing to lock it in position, that's illegal. But they can say, well, you've got a half-inch blade, non-lockable blade, but it's for the intent of doing something dangerous. So it's intent. No matter what the law says, if they say your intention is to defend yourself, not to attack someone, if you say you're carrying something for self-defense, you can be arrested because you are being offensive by acting in a defensive manner. The way the law's written is nothing to do with protecting you, but protecting them from you. So if you've got something that you can use to defend yourself, so ladies, you get told this in your ladies' self-defense, this is very sexist, your defense classes, to walk around with your house keys between your knuckles so you can punch some nasty person in the bollocks if we try. Yeah, that means you are tooled up. That is actually an expression the police use. If you're walking around with your keys between your knuckles and you tell them this, you'll be arrested for being offensive, acting in a defensive way. Okay? You can do it, just don't tell them you're doing it. Just say, oh, I didn't realise, I'm just carrying my keys because it's easier to open the door. I'm just being ready to open the door. 10 miles away. If you tell them you're doing it to defend yourself, you can be arrested. They can arrest you for defensive behaviour because it can be perceived as offensive to someone who might want to arrest you. It's intention. Intent is what they use to arrest you. Not what you're doing, but what they claim the perception is you might be doing. 2 little points for this. Ease of access is one thing. That is a big, big thing. If you've got it in your pocket, if you've got it in your hand, whether it's keys, a knife, your multi-tool, If you've got it in your pocket or at hand where you can grab it easily or under a car seat or whatever, if you can grab it within 10 seconds and have it ready to use within 10 seconds, that means you're tooled up and you can be arrested for carrying an offensive weapon. Defensive, offensive, it's the same bloody thing. So if you've got it close to hand, that's a different matter. However, if you have it and you have it wrapped up in a rag and tied up with a piece of string that will take more than 10 seconds, 20 seconds to undo, that changes it completely. Because you're not going around with something that is easy to get hold of and use. You've got something that you're just carrying it for later use. Another point, the second point for this is intent. What you intend to carry that for. It's a psychiatric thing. You have to have a reason for everything. And pretty much all modern psychiatry is based on Freud, the incestuous paedophile. So it's all based on this. So if you're carrying a blade, then it's for agricultural, horticultural reasons. Don't try and get clever by saying, oh, it's within my legal right to have it under a certain... They don't care. They will just say, we believe you got it for the intent of doing something else, suspicion of doing something else. They don't need a reason, suspicion. That's all they got to say. They can arrest you. That's all they got to say is suspicion of doing something. With the intent of doing something else. They don't even have to give you a reason. So if you say something like, you're taking cuttings from a tree, or you're taking bark from a tree, like willow trees. They cut down most of the trees anyway, but let's get willow trees growing around because they're so virulent, and you can use that as a medicine. You take a bit of willow bark. So just say, you've got a cold, you want to take a little bit of willow bark to put in a cup for a cup of tea because it helps your cold, your flu, which is true. Don't try and get clever by trying to quote the law. The police know nothing about the law. They are not legally allowed to quote the law. If the police start quoting laws, you can have them arrested. Don't quote me on that. But if the police start quoting law, they're breaking the law because they are not legally allowed to tell you about the law. They're not allowed to tell you what the definition of laws are. That is not their job. Their job is to arrest you on suspicion of breaking the law. It is solicitors who argue the law, lawyers who argue the law, and judges who state definitions of the law. But none of them create the law. That is done by Parliament. So don't start trying to quote the law to the police because they haven't got a clue and they're not allowed to. So if you say you've got a blade on you, if it's wrapped up in a backpack, then that means it's going to take you a while to unravel. You are not tooled up. If you've got something you can grab easily, you are tooled up. If they say, well, why have you got it? Don't just say, it's my legal right. You're not in America. You'll just get arrested for suspicion of intent. They don't need any reason. Just say something like, it's for harvesting cuttings. You're going for cuttings of plants, so you're doing horticulture, you're doing gardening. You want to take some cuttings of trees so you can try and grow them. Okay, my 2-minute video is dragging on. Classifications of weapons. Things like air rifles, air pistols. You can own them, buy them without any identification, or some shops will insist that you show identification. You do not legally have to. And you can buy them secondhand quite easily. They work on compressed air up to a certain power. I don't know the exact power rating. It's something like a 177 or a 22 pellet. There's no legal restrictions. Over a certain power, it's classed as a firearm. But don't think that a firearm is just something that goes bang bang with bullets. That is not the classification. You can have melee weapons that are classed as a firearm. I'll explain that in a minute. Crossbows were illegal 40 years ago, and now they're legal again. You can own them, but within context. And crossbows are very, very dodgy because it doesn't look very powerful. Because of the pound breaking strength on the iron bar, it will go straight through a fence, as I know. So be careful where you're using it. Always think about what's beyond your target, and beyond that, because it will go through trees. So, but things like, they're also trying to outlaw catapults. It's this big push towards making any kind of defensive weapon, anything you could use to defend yourself, illegal. So there's fireworks are trying to make it illegal because they damage the mental health of veterans. They don't want anyone having access to explosives or anything that might be used to defend yourself or to attack somebody else. Catapults is another one they were discussing in Parliament in, I think it was March 2026. They were talking about banning catapults because they're hurting birdies. Yeah, they just don't want anybody having access to anything because you can get metal darts, you can make your own darts from twigs that within 5 meters you could poke somebody's eye out. So they are effective. But things that can be classified as a firearm, for which you need a firearms license, which means you need permission from the police to actually own, are tasers. Just your little, you can actually make your own, and you can buy the bits to make it online. What you do to get this is something like maybe 3 AA batteries, a step pulse arc generator that costs about 50p, and a couple of screws. And you can make, I've done it. Now I can have that, I can make it, I can demonstrate it. That is not illegal. But if I have it in my pocket walking outside, I can get done for firearms offences. And I can get 15 years in prison. Because I can get done for carrying with intent, firearms possession, and there's another one. It works out about 15 years in prison for a little handmade taser. So it doesn't have to fire bullets to be classed as a firearm. Much in the same way that is in, say, in the Republic of Ireland, you can be done for child pornography without any children or pornography being involved. That's just the way the laws work. They twist it to make it how they want it to be perceived. It's perception, it's intent, it's can you justify what you have. So, home defense. My own personal philosophy on this is that if it's a kid breaking in, I'll kick them out, throw them out, call the police. If it's an adult, well, I've not had sex in a very long time, and I've got a very simple policy on adults breaking into the house. It's amazing how often they do not report you for in the ass. So, if you've got things like I have at every window, a knife, you will be arrested. It doesn't matter if they break in and rape you and kill you and murder your babies. If you've got a knife near the window, you'll be arrested. I don't give a shit. I do anyway. But as far as I'm concerned, I've got a big pointy knife on top of the fuse box by the front door for gardening, which I have used yesterday for gardening, cutting string. It's also a very pointy knife. But I've got one at every window because I've got junkies living near me who are protected by the police, because that's how the law works. Criminals know how the law works more than people who are not criminals. It's down to intent. If you can say you grabbed a knife because you keep it near the window and you stabbed an intruder to defend yourself, you'll go to prison. There's a guy, don't remember his name, I did meet him actually in prison. He was in Oakwood. He was in his 70s. And he got done because 2 scroats, travellers, broke into his farm and tried to rob the place. And because he went outside the front door and shot one dead who was running away, he went to prison. And he got, I think, between 5 and 10 years. He got sent to prison for that. And I think he got extra time whilst he was inside. I can't remember the details. I only met him briefly when I was up there. But it's intent. If you say you just happen to have a knife on the ground because you're a slob, or because you were cutting the trim off a bit of tape because you were decorating, and it just happened to be there, and you just used it to defend yourself, you didn't think what it was, you won't get arrested unless they think you're lying. If you say you had it there for defensive purposes, you'll be arrested. It's intent. It's perceived intent. That is what matters. If you say you're tooled up, ready to defend yourself from an invasion, the police will arrest you. Because the way the law is constructed is you are not seen as a law-abiding citizen, you are seen as an inmate in a concentration camp. That is how the law works. If you say you're doing something to defend yourself, to defend your home, to defend your family, you will be arrested. That is how the law works. Just don't tell them. Just have a valid reason for why you do things. The reason you've got a knife next to the window is because you are doing some decorating and you're just cutting the trim off a bit of tape for doing your DIY. The reason why you've got an art generator is because you're doing experiments with turning sand into glass. It's intent. It's perceived intent. It's what you say. If you say, I'm ready for anything, they'll arrest you. If you say, I'm defending my home, they'll arrest you. You're not allowed to defend your home. You're not allowed to do anything that could be used against the police if they come into your house. You don't live in a free society. You live in a Jewish-owned, American-occupied concentration camp. That is the fact of the way the world works. You're not allowed to have anything that could be used against them. That is all they care about. So, if someone does break in your house and they end up dead, you didn't have a knife ready to defend yourself. It just happened to be there from some DIY stuff. A screwdriver. You get very long ones. If you want to sharpen the edge, sharpen the edge. But the reason the screwdriver's there, because you were doing some DIY. Yeah, just to clarify the points on the example I gave with the farmer. I can't remember what his name was. Pitchfork something? Anyway, you're allowed to use reasonable force to defend yourself. But if you pursue the person after they've left the house, or if you chase them, that makes you the aggressor. That means you are guilty of attacking them when they are retreating, fleeing. Personally, I do not believe in leaving a threat to exist. If someone threatens me, I believe them. A good example is I went for a walk 2 days ago, and this dog attacked me. And I pushed it away with my walking stick, and these two teenagers came up. One of them said, "Oh, I'm going to smash that round your face if you hit my dog with that." And I smacked him around the head with the walking stick. "You're not supposed to do that!" And my reaction was very simple. You set your dog on me, and then you threaten to murder me. But it was just words. I don't know if someone's lying to me or telling me the truth. All I know is I'm outnumbered 3-1. I've been attacked by a dog, and my life has been threatened by somebody else. Therefore, I will defend myself. That's reasonable force. It doesn't matter if someone is just using words, because that's what he told me on telly. But if I were to have chased him, I would have been the aggressor, and then I would have been in trouble. But because I did not chase him, I just smacked him around the head to defend myself against 3 attackers. Therefore, I am in self-defense. So it's down to what you do, not just during, but after. So if someone does break into your house and you chase them, for whatever reason, you're the aggressor. If someone breaks into your house and you've got a back door and you don't leave the house and let them rob you, you're in wrong, not them. That is how the law works. If someone comes to your house and threatens to burn it down and tries to kick in the door, and you've got a back door, if you don't leave the house and let them come in and let them rob the house, you'll be arrested because you could have fled. That's how the law works. The laws work to be designed to protect people committing these offences, not people defending against them. That is how the law works. It's designed to protect a certain demographic and those who commit crimes, not to protect the majority of innocent people.